says, yes, stragglers from wars are difficult to deal with, like World War II Nazi holdouts in the mountains for months after the war. A squad of Japanese who held guerrilla war tactics for decades after the war. Yeah, the last two, there was two guys left, or I think one of them died, and only one Japanese soldier came out of the Philippines years after the war was over. So that will happen. You'll see that sort of thing here. And earlier today, Walt and I were talking about this whole FBI debacle BS where Ray is defying a congressional subpoena. And
let's see him go to jail.
Well, he won't go to jail because even if Congress tries to push the issue and hold him in contempt for not appearing for the subpoena, then the DOJ has to prosecute him. He's part of the DOJ. They're not going to touch the guy. And we're looking at a zero recourse to grievance in this country right now. You know, they are doing whatever they want, however they want, to whoever they want, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. Who do you go to complain to? You can't complain to the Department of Justice because Merrick Garland is, he's in Biden's ass tighter than a tick. So what do you think, Walt? Because we talked about this earlier today a little bit.
I don't see any way around this. It's going to have to change in the next election, or it's going to work more towards the whole system breaking. It's just
I think that's the goal. Me and Mel were talking about this earlier. We think, that they're actually just genuinely trying to completely destroy this country.
Oh yeah, There's so many people who want America to die, and we're going to see it.
Sadly, I got a feeling.
I think the thing specific to Biden and the DOJ and all that is these are people in power. They're not going to give it up. And they've got the system rigged to not give it up, and they're assuming that we're not going to make a stink, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, we are. Well,
we'll see if people will. And most people aren't going to get involved until they have no other option. Until their life is interfered with, their jobs are interfered with, their ability to travel, their ability to feed their kids, that kind of thing. That's when people will start getting irritated.
Well, then the problem comes in then when it goes to digital currency and they control everything. How are you going to do anything?
Well, then they can, once they have digital currency, that's when they can basically flip a switch and turn you off. You have no access to money. Think about it. They can turn off your access to internet. They can turn off your cell phone. They can turn off everything. You won't be able to communicate with nobody. You won't be able to go nowhere, buy anything. And they're not going to give a shit what you do then. Basically, you're just alone in the wilderness at that point.
Correct.
There is no stopping this, right?
No.
There is no stopping. How do we stop this?
You don't. They're going to do what they're going to do. We just got to deal with it.
I think states are going to make an effort.
Right.
A number of them are forming their own currency, gold back. Texas, there are a list of several more, and they're going to use that currency within the state to give people a chance to use something.
Not the president. But and I do see, we've talked about the balkanization that will probably happen. I've talked about it for a few years now, and that's how I see things going.
Hey, Rebecca.
I agree.
And Patrick there's saying he's got a nephew in Chad, and they're seeing stuff from Ukraine is showing up there in Chad along with Russian gear. And we just had the big deal about AT-4s showing up in Mexico, and everybody's kind of freaking out about it, but I guess they all forget that in November of 2022, NLAWs and AT-4s showed up in Venezuela, but on the Venezuelan-Colombian border. So that stuff that we're sending, all those hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that we're sending to Ukraine and equipment and stuff, they are, a lot of it's hitting the black market, Yeah. And that's going to keep happening. If you want to hear about the Russian soldiers, One Soldier's War by whatever that is a great grunt interpretation of the Russian military, both good and bad. What conflict was he in, Mark? I mean, I know you like cosplaying the Russian side with all their shit, but I'm not a real fan of their military because. And here's the thing. Let me ask you, Walt. Do you think Putin has committed any of his professional troops yet?
I don't know, because they don't need professional troops the way the Russians run a war. They just need bodies. They've done this for decades. They did in World War II. They throw enough bodies at you. They know they have the numbers. They don't need to kill off their best, Praetorian Guard that sits around Moscow. No reason to. And they got to worry about China. They may be buddy with China, but There's a lot of natural resources just north of Mongolia that the Chinese would love to have. And we mentioned that in book 5 with the next Charlie book is the soldiers from Russia coming over are part and parcel. Some of they're not the best. They have the older equipment. They don't want to commit the good stuff because they're worried about what China could do.
Right. And that's what, there are some analysts out there that are saying that Russia has yet to actually put in their top line troops and equipment. I don't know how many more T-90s they may have and T-80s they may have laying around, but enough of them have blown up over there that they're going to be running out of them quickly.
Now, the bottom line is when you've got a population difference between Russia and Ukraine of 10 or 20, the Russians don't need to do anything but just keep throwing bodies at them. And the Ukrainians are falling right into it. Most of their offenses are just chewing up their own conscripts. I'm not even sure if they know how many. We don't even know how many true conscripts are left. Estimates for
they can keep going with conscripts. They can conscript all day long in Russia.
The Russians can, but the Ukrainians can't. They're running out of bodies.
They are, and it's kind of funny too. If you watch some of the videos that come out of Ukraine from, like, I just watched one a minute ago of a young woman, very pretty young blonde thing, walking down the street complaining about the Patriot missile batteries going off all night long, shooting down drones that are attacking the city she lives in, asking why can't they move these to the west and get them out of here so I can get a decent night's sleep. That's the entitlement and mentality. It's good to see they got to deal with the same shit that we do with the idiots that live in this country. So Putin is starting to get afraid. So in Belgorod, the Free Russia militia folks are raising hell over there. They're seeing drone attacks all the way into Moscow right now, and there's no way that's coming from Ukraine. That's being done internally, and they're hitting some of their higher end, richer neighborhoods in Moscow and stuff like that. They've pretty much overrun Belgorod, I think. One of the local administrations there for one of the regional administration buildings, they were told to burn all the documents in the building, and the Free Russia force was moving on them so fast they ended up setting the entire administrative building on fire and running away from it so that whatever was in there couldn't be captured.
I have a question, Chris. What do you think the odds are that the Free Russian group is being funded by some of the other Russian crooks that want to get Putin out of there?
And this may even sound nutty, but what if it's Prigozhin that's behind it?
Yeah,
because Prigozhin needs to be watching over his shoulder right now because he keeps smack talking Putin, and then the Chechen guy, his name just slipped my mind. Now he's smack talking Prigozhin, and you're starting to see on Russian TV. I've watched a lot of the Russian. They have these panels where they have 4 or 5 people standing around all talking crap. And when the Ukrainian war first started, boy, they were some bold bastards. But now their talk is all about how we may not be able to win this thing, and what are we going to do? And maybe it is time to change and get away from Putin. And then Prigozhin's out there saying the same thing, but he happens to have an army. So we very well could see a potential civil war inside Russia here in the very near future.
Well, it takes some money to do what they're doing. It's, they got to buy the missiles, the drones. They need a supply chain. Unless that's being snuck in by NATO, which I don't know if they're competent enough to do that.
They're running Hummers and our armored vehicles into Russia right now. Yeah. Mark Rose, he says, my son is in a nearby country training Ukrainians to operate Bradley IFVs. Been there since December. Hope the shit doesn't hit the fan until he gets on in August. Mark, he'll probably be all right to get out of there. Everybody's talked a lot about the Ukrainian counteroffensive, and they're waiting to see it start. I believe it's already started. They took Zimny Island. They just took that back. They hit a bunch of Russian naval vessels. They sunk a landing craft ship, the actual ship that'll roll on, roll off, or ro-ro, and they hit some landing craft and sunk them along with some other vessels the other day. My worry, and I've said this before, is especially with them moving into Russia, that Putin would take the gloves off. I could see the use of tactical nukes.
You're deep in Russia.
They're not that
They're
deep.
getting-
But they're there. I mean, just the fact that they crossed the border and curb stomped the troops that were there. There's very few troops that were there. It's not going to be pretty.
I think the biggest thing, Chris, the biggest thing about that is whether it makes Putin weaker or look bad. I heard a very true statement today from one of the Russians. They were saying that this war is not going to end anytime soon, and I think they're looking at months or years of this going on, battling over 100 yards or 100 meters at a time.
Yeah, I don't think this will end anytime soon, and it kind of echoes as what was it? Blinken told the not Blinken, it was Joint Chief maybe told the Chinese that if they invade Taiwan, there is no such thing as a short war.
Correct.
That will go on, until it goes on.
Yep.
It's ridiculous, and